Hey, what's up? Welcome to DGen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts, like the chart behind me, which is of Rocket Lab, ticker symbol RKLB. And so here I am recording this on Tuesday, August 20th, in the morning before the market opens, after Rocket Lab closed yesterday, August 19th, at a price of $7.19, being up nearly 10% on the day. Looking really good, as you guys can see. This has been pretty awesome to experience this, breaking out above this yellow downtrend, really taking off. So looking good. But with that being said, now that we've moved up so much, there's a lot of risk of a pullback. So do brace for that. Do have a plan for if it does pull back so one can add on dips. If it is to continue following a pullback, I think that is going to be likely, but I do think it could go higher. But a big reason why I think it's good to be exercising caution is because if we look back from this low on August 15th, when the market collapsed over the weekend, gapping down, a lot of stocks rebounded and Rocket Lab has really taken off since then. From the high yesterday, Rocket Lab is up about 75%. If we adjust that down a little bit, it's around 70% based on yesterday's close. But actually in the pre-market, we're actually closer to the yesterday's high, trading around 730 and or above. So looking really good there, but also considering, maybe the averages aren't at 420 at the low. Also funny number there. Always good to have fun with the charts. And, so maybe the average is right around this purple line here at $5. It's up 40%, if not getting closer to 50%. So big move, and following that, especially, looking at the RSI here. What was the RSI from yesterday? 78. I've seen them over 90% recently in some stocks. So RSI could go higher. This could continue to go up. So I wanted to talk about that, some levels to the upside. I think Rocket Lab is probably going to get to, but I think that following that, there will be a pullback. And so one reason why I think Rocket Lab is going to go higher, if we look at the high from the 16th, so last Friday, we can see that price was at $7.10, the wick high right here. We closed yesterday on Monday above that level. So that suggests to me that price will be going higher. But if we look at the volume here, it does look like volume's coming down a little bit. It does look like we're starting to see a little bit of weakness. This momentum is starting to die down. Also, looking at the shape of this candle, it is, a spinning top. It's kind of a big one. So maybe not so much a reversal or indecision signal just yet, but I do think we are getting to that point. I did highlight this level, the 1618, based on this light blue retracement here. And that level is at $8.85.4. Currently trading above it, looking really good. And so with that being said, I don't think it's a good time to sell, but I think it's a good time to trim, take a little bit of that risk off the table if we do pull back. And the reason why I think that this is ultimately going to be pulling back is because we have broken out. Breakout, we retrace to the scene of the crime. That scene of the crime is this yellow downtrend, and I think that would coincide with the 786 here, right around 550. Also, that being a psychological number, one $5 bill, 2 quarters, makes sense. And so I think we could eventually be seeing that, maybe by the end of the month, maybe sometime in September, maybe in October, maybe not until next year. We could also just be pulling back to, around $6. The top here was at 584, so that might be a level to consider, and then just taking a step back to get an idea of where that yellow downtrend comes into play. Got to take quite a step back. But yeah, that's been a level of resistance for quite some time, going back to the beginning of 2022 when we did hit this pivot high. We broke out from that, and I think that looks great. But I think that there is more risk on the table. And so some levels to the upside that I could see, one, and this is getting a little extreme, is right around 850. That is the 2618, so really just extending this up. 850, might be capping off there. And then this other prior high, 805, I think that we likely will be testing that, maybe getting a wick higher. But at that point, RSI might be getting higher than the levels over here. This is 77 or so, 77.44, I believe is the high around there. If the RSI is not above 77.44, and we are hitting higher highs than 805. That might be suggesting a top of Zen because that is bearish divergence when we're hitting higher highs, but the RSI is at a lower high. What seems more likely to me is that we will be hitting a higher RSI because we're getting close to 77.44 with it at, actually we are already higher than 77.44. I'm not listening to myself as I speak, but with that being said, having a higher RSI than prior times when we hit this high here, volume starting to die down, potentially, still suggesting that we might be going higher, but maybe in fact we don't hit 805 and maybe we start to put a top in. But my bet is that we hit 805, we actually wick above it, but we don't get to 850. And following that, we start to see a pullback bouncing on some levels on the way down, but ultimately we retrace to 550. If that's not in August, if that's not in September, sometime this year, I suspect we will be retracing to 550. And so I think it's good to have a plan to be able to buy that dip so we're ready for the next launch. I think that this launch has been awesome, but I think that eventually it's going to die off, just like this one died off, had a massive move from the bottom here, going up 66%, pretty close to 75% where we're at now, before it did retrace from that level, coming down to, about 28% following that upside move. And so if we do look at, let's say 28% from where we're currently at, that actually brings us lower than 550. I was thinking it wouldn't take us down to 550. That'd be bringing us down to around 525. Thinking about this as, a measured move relative to this move up, pulling back 28%. If we do pull back 28%, maybe, with that being said, maybe this does continue higher, going up to around 760, and then that 28% pullback would coincide with 550. So do brace for that. But one thing I do want to end on is that if we flip over to unusual whales, there has been a lot of activity, a lot of options activity with Rocket Lab. And one thing that does stand out to me, this was from the 16th. If I look at this call, that is an $8 strike coming up this Friday. There has been a lot of bullish volume traded on that. Not necessarily looking at the graph up here, but looking at this table here, we can look at the increases in the open interest. On the 15th, there wasn't really that much to go on about. Not many open contracts, people being bullish on Rocket Lab, going up to $8 a share, closing above that this Friday. But then that has been steadily going up. Looks like on the 16th, that open interest increased by about 208 contracts. And then from the 16th, we got an increase of open interest over 5,000 contracts. So on the 19th, yesterday, the open interest was just under 6,000 contracts. And then now getting into today, starting the day off with 7.5 thousand contracts open, being bullish on Rocket Lab, closing this Friday above $8 a share. But, what we see here is that the ask side is starting to diminish. Here it was about 100% on the ask side, so people buying these contracts, but that is diminishing as we're getting closer to the expiration date. People are going to be taking profits. Just because it's a strike of $8 does not mean we are going to be closing above that level. It just means we're going to be moving towards it. And since we have moved up so much, people are going to be taking the risk off the table. They're going to be closing out these contracts, and price may not get to $8 a share, even though this looks really, really bullish. We've had a great move to the upside, as we can see here. And, it might still continue, but it might be pulling back. So do prepare for that. Do have a plan for a revisit of 550, because I think that's going to be another dip buying level, just like 420 was down here. Just like how 347 was down here. I think 550 is that next dip buying level. So have a plan for it, but also have a plan for $8 a share. But those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for the request, and take care, you guys.